I'm going to show you the highlights of what's new in SwiftUI for iOS 27. And first up, we got a nice new Reorderable modifier. So here in my simulator, I can grab one of my cards and drag it around, reorder it. As you see, we get a nice little animation. Now this will work in grids. This will work in horizontal stacks. So how do we get that over here in my code? You can see on my right, I have the preview showing you the view I'm working with, and it's a scroll view with a VStack. And there's the for each with my trip card view. You can see the card. Now, never mind the swipe actions. We'll get to that in a second. That is also something that is new. But the main thing I want to point out here is the reorderable modifier on the for each. That is the first key. Now, the second key is on the container. So this is going to be on the overall VStack. We create a reorder container, and that'll give us a reorder difference. And then here, I wrote an extension on an array. So trips is an array. .apply the difference. And what this line of code is, this is the logic to move things around within your array. So I'll show you what I used, and this is right from Apple's sample code. This extension on the array is just basic move logic, and you can see you get this reorder difference that has some properties on it that'll help you out. So first of all, you want to pull the source index, like where are we pulling it from, and then create a property called move card. Cool. And then you remove that card that was at that index. And then now you want to find the destination. Again, you get difference.destination. Again, this reorder difference has a lot of good properties on it that'll help you get this. So you find the destination and then you insert the move card at the destination. Again, pretty basic move logic, but you got to write your own logic because maybe you want to persist the order here, or maybe there's other stuff you want to do while you're moving it around besides just moving it. So here's a sample of some basic move logic. If you need to do more, go ahead and do that. But again, the two main things here are the reorder container, which will give you that difference, and then you can write the move logic however you like, and make the for each.reorderable, and then you get this nice drag and drop animation, nice and smooth. And again, works on grids, works on HStacks, etc. Now let's talk about those swipe to delete modifiers. So here you can see swipe actions on the trip card view. Now before, swipe actions were only reserved for a SwiftUI list. Now a SwiftUI list gave you a lot of things out of the box like swipe actions. However, a list isn't very customizable. And a lot of developers are moving towards a scroll view in a lazy VStack or lazy HStack when they want scrolling content because you just get a lot more customizations and flexibility. List is pretty rigid. So it's nice to get swipe actions now in iOS 27 when you're using the scroll view stack combo for scrolling content. And this is actually pretty simple as well. Similar to what we did with the reorder container, on our scroll view down here on these modifiers, you can see we have a swipe actions container. So you put that on the container, and then now you can have swipe actions inside there. So we just added swipe actions onto our card view, and now over in my preview, you can see I can swipe and I get delete and favorite. Those are the two buttons I created. And if I hit delete, I get that nice little animation. Swipe, delete, nice animation. So new in iOS 27, you don't have to be in a SwiftUI list to get the built-in swipe actions. Nice little addition. Next up, let's talk about the new Crossfade navigation transition. Now, navigation transitions have been around since iOS 18. Here's the zoom one, for example. When I hit the plus button, you get this nice zoom transition in and out of the toolbar. That's my favorite, I love it. Well, now we have a new Crossfade transition, should you want to use that one for some reason. Now, with the zoom transition, you needed a namespace and match transition source with an ID on your toolbar item, and then navigation transition down here. All you need for Crossfade is just a navigation transition. So you can comment out match transition source. You don't need the namespace. I'm going to leave it up there. But just to show you, I'm going to do, well, let me comment that one out. On the app trip view, do .navigation transition and just .crossfade. So now when I hit the plus, you see we get a Crossfade transition. Again, I like the zoom one personally, but if you need this crossfade, there you go. I'll always take new additions. Can't argue with having more options. And real quick, Bitrig, which is a Mac app that lets you build native Swift apps using AI, it's already set up for the Xcode 27 betas, and it can handle all these brand new APIs I'm showing you. So check it out and build something cool with all these fun new toys. All right, let's move on to the tab bar. So I'm gonna go to my trip tab view here over in the left, let my preview load, and you'll see my tab bar down below. So I already have it set up, so my trips is the prominent tab. So the prominent tab is the one in the lower right. You see it separated out from the tab bar, looks nice. New in iOS 27 is you can make any tab prominent. Again, my trips tab is the one that's role prominent. I'm going to cut this. Let's make our Explore tab prominent. Paste it down there. So now, once my preview refreshes, you'll see the Explore tab, which is the globe. That is now the prominent one, and trips is over there. So if you have one of your tabs that you want to be prominent, simple little parameter here, just roll.prominent, and you'll get that effect. I'm going to go back to where my trips are prominent. There you go. See, I just did that. There you go. Now my little airplane icon, that is the prominent one. There's some new toolbar APIs in iOS 27. Back to my trips view. So the toolbar, you see I have a map icon and then the plus icon. And I'm actually gonna get rid of the crossfade go back to the zoom, because again, that's my favorite. I'm a zoom fanboy. Okay, but here we are in the toolbar. So the toolbar items will overflow into an overflow menu if you have too many of them. I'm gonna add a bunch of toolbar items to show how this works. Let's actually make this a globe so we can tell the difference here. Okay, so you can see the globe over there in the toolbar. I'm gonna add a bunch of them now to show you the overflow menu in action. There we go. There's a whole bunch of globes. So you can see the toolbar will grow, and then when it can't grow anymore, like maybe if this was an iPad in landscape mode, it would keep going. But we're on a phone, so we don't have that much space. But now we get this overflow menu. There's our maps and our globes. That automatically fills up. Now we can determine what goes in there and what doesn't. Like, let's say my map icon, which as you can see is down here in my overflow menu, I don't want that to go in the overflow menu. I really want that to stay out, and all the other stuff can go in the overflow menu. So if I go down to my tab bar item, that is the map, I know they're all named map, but this is the system image map. But on this toolbar item, if I do visibility priority.high, now you will see the map stays out of the overflow menu. Anything marked high will stay out of the overflow menu, and everything else will go in there. And then you can see our plus button never went in there. That is because our toolbar item for the plus button to add has a placement of top bar pinned trailing. That's what you want to use if you want something always in the top right. That is like the prominent thing. That is the main thing. And for us, adding a trip is the main thing. That will never go in the overflow menu. And our map's not going in the overflow menu because we have visibility priority set to high. And then one last thing, let me Command Z, get rid of all of our globes here and go back to where we were. Cool, we're back to just our two buttons. You can actually create the overflow menu to always be there. You know, maybe it's just some secondary actions you don't always want to be prominent. Well, you can create a toolbar overflow menu, and then I'm gonna copy and paste here just to show you. Just put a bunch of buttons in there. I'm gonna put a bunch of maps in there just to show what you can do. So now that we have a toolbar overflow menu, in here are all the maps or all the buttons I put in there. Obviously, you would have a bunch of different buttons, but using the toolbar overflow menu, you can basically force that overflow menu and determine what goes in there. Regardless if you're on an iPad or an iPhone, that overflow menu will always be there. All right, let's get rid of that, go back to where we were. That's it for the new toolbar APIs. Moving on, something I've been looking forward to for a while now is that AsyncImage will now automatically cache its images. So what am I talking about here? So this image right here of the coast, the forest, this is being fetched from a server using AsyncImage. I'm gonna go to my trip card view. You can see here that it is using AsyncImage and it is fetching from the trip URL. Now, before, this would not cache. So what that means, if I go back to my trips view, as I'm scrolling down, it would be fetching the images as the view comes onto the screen. And then even when I scroll back up, it would refetch the images. Scroll back down, it would refetch the images. Kind of inefficient, right? Well now, again, out of the box, go back to trip card view, AsyncImage will use some basic caching out of the box. You don't have to change your code. Just an under the hood performance increase. We all get it. Great. But they added some extra levels of customization should you need it. So now AsyncImage, as of iOS 27, has a new initializer that will take in a URL request. So we'll initialize that, and you can see the URL, again, will be trip.image URL. And then you can designate a cache policy. So this is the first level of customization, just basically designating a basic cache policy. But there's an even higher level of customization. You can create your own custom URL session, create any custom caches you need, and then use that for your async images. So again, the levels are just basic caching out of the box. You don't have to do anything with AsyncImage, or you can add a custom cache policy should you choose. I'm gonna Command Z to go back to where we were, which is the old school pass in the URL. And here you can see I made a custom URL session struct that just has a image session here. We're just crafting a very basic URL session, the default configuration. On that configuration, we're creating a URL cache, giving it a memory capacity and a disk capacity. Again, super basic cache setup, and then we're returning that URL session. This is where you could create a much more robust URL session for whatever you need, but this is super basic, and I'm gonna show you how you can use your custom one in the async image. And we're gonna use it on our trips view on the for each that has the async image. So remember, our trip card view is what houses the async image. So on this for each here, we add this async image URL session, and then we pass in our custom session. So now our async image is going to use this custom URL session that we set up. And again, that's the most advanced one. Most of us will probably be fine with just the default out of the box version. And two other additions are that state is now a macro. And this allows any classes initialized as a state variable, like maybe a store or a view model, to be initialized lazily, so it's only initialized once. So previously what was happening is if you were initializing a view model or a store on a view, and that view got destroyed and recreated, because that's what SwiftUI does. Of course, state would do its job and hold on to that class, but a second one would get initialized and then immediately discarded. And then if that view got destroyed and recreated again, a second one would get initialized and then immediately discarded. So not very performant. So now state is a macro. Your classes that are initialized as a state variable are initialized lazily and will only get created once. So that's another nice performance boost in iOS 27. And another quality of life improvement is that you should see less of this dreadful error. The compiler is unable to type check the expression in a reasonable amount of time. We've all seen this plenty of times. But we should see it a lot less now that ContentBuilder is a thing new in SwiftUI, and it's a substantial improvement to the performance of type checking. Now, all these new SwiftUI APIs and Xcode 27 betas are available to build with in Bitrig. And if you're not familiar, Bitrig is a Mac app that can build native Swift apps using AI. Imagine something like Codex or Claude Code that was built from the ground up to build high quality, premium, native apps specifically for Apple platforms. That's Bitrig, and the team ships weekly updates so the product keeps getting better and better and better. Check it out at bitrig.com.